Did you get it, Joel? Okay.
Yep. All right.
So just one thing to let you know, we are recording this for our teammates that are not here tonight, so that they will be able to watch this as well. And I just wanted to let you know that up front, and hopefully that's okay. But my name is Ben, and introduce my most favorite teammate here to my right. This is Miss Vicki Gittner.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And this is our handsome young lad, Tyler Brockman. And Joel will kind of dip his head in here as well. We can't get him on the screen.
Sorry, that's a little scary.
Well, thank you so much, Maria, for your time tonight. I'm so glad you were able to join us. And if it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and just get started and have you. First thing I wanted you to do is just to walk us through your experience, starting with your resume and back in 1994 when you were the Baptist campus minister there in Delaware, and take us, kind of through your experience. Both, we see that you have got great experience in the church and outside of the church, and we just kind of want to get to know you a little better.
Okay. Well, my first job out of college, as you see, I was the Baptist campus minister at the University of Delaware. That was a small group of students. We had about 15 students we worked with there. Through some circumstances, through some health circumstances, when I left that position, I moved back to Chattanooga, and I worked in the nonprofit and healthcare field for about 8 years there. Then I returned to divinity school in 2002 at Wake Forest. And while I was in divinity school, I started working part-time as a children's minister at Knollwood Baptist Church, and I was there for 5 years. Then when I left Knollwood, I went to First Baptist West Jefferson, which is also in North Carolina, and I worked there for 2.5 years as their minister of spiritual formation, working with children and youth. And I've been at Third Baptist Church for 5 years, where I've worked with children in communications.
Okay, great. Going back to your time at Knollwood, that was a part-time position, correct?
It started as part-time, then it became full-time.
Okay. And what type of responsibilities? I see it says holistic ministry, spiritual formation. What type of responsibilities did you have and programs did you implement with the children there?
Well, I was the first children's minister they'd had at that church, so we kind of started from the ground up, working with preschoolers and elementary students. I implemented Vacation Bible School for them, and also started the Wednesday night programming, which we worked with music and missions.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the things we implemented when I was there.
Oh, wow, that's great. And what? Talk to me about this spiritual formation position, and what did that entail, and what were your responsibilities with that position?
Well, my primary responsibilities were ministry to children and youth. I also had responsibilities for adult spiritual formation. So really it was overseeing the spiritual formation of everyone in the church, but primarily the children and youth. Okay.
And now you're currently there in St. Louis at Third Baptist Church. And what has your time been like there with Third Baptist?
I've enjoyed being there. I've had a chance to try some new skills with the communications part of my position, and also get to be involved with children's ministry too.
Well, tell me about those skills with communication. What does that entail?
I work with the website and the newsletter and the weekly worship order, publishing all those things.
And in the children's department, about how children's department there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
And in the children's department, about how big is the children's department there?
We have about 15 kids.
And is that elementary age, or does that include preschool, or is that?
It includes preschool.
And so let me ask you, what do you like about your time there right now, and why are you applying for other positions, and what are you looking for in your next job?
Okay. Well, I'm applying for other positions because I would like to get closer to my family in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's the main reason I'm applying for other positions. I enjoy working with the children. I enjoy the communications part also. And in my next position, I'd just like to be able to focus on the children and building up that ministry.
Okay. Is the communications something that you like to continue as well?
Yes, if that was possible, I would continue that, yes.
Yeah. And so mainly like social media type of communications and website
Yes.
management. Yeah. Great. I mean, I definitely think that is needed in today's world with the children that we have. Everybody's connected in different ways.
Yeah.
You got to be able to communicate on their level, right?
Right.
Well, at this time, I just want to, take a brief moment to walk through our job description for the children's ministry here. And
okay.
As I do that, please feel free to, ask us any questions that you might have, and, anything that you want further clarification on.
Okay.
A chance to look through it.
Yes, I've had a chance to look through it.
Okay, good, perfect. So we're not just, going blind in it. I'll ask you before I start going through it, does this look similar to other positions that you've applied for? And
yes, it does.
Do you think that there's too much or there's not enough on here? Are we, what do you feel about the job description? Just first thoughts.
I think it was a good balance of enough work, and I liked the emphasis that it had on working with the children that were there with Vacation Bible School on Wednesday nights and all those things. Okay,
good. Yeah, and that's kind of, that's what we want to get to, is just to make sure that you had a chance to look at it. I'll go ahead and just get through first with the definition. Ministered children will develop and lead ministries which develop young children from birth through sixth grade in their families, fostering spiritual growth towards Christ-like maturity. Then we go through several bullet points there, and then down to qualifications and requirements. I feel as though your experience meets our qualifications and requirements there quite well. And then just into the job responsibilities. Sunday school for children and preschoolers. Obviously, all of these things are already in place. We have a lot of good bones here at St. Matthew's Baptist. I don't know if you've had a chance to do any research on our church at all, but we recently had our children's minister retired after a stint here at St. Matthew's. And so we have a vibrant and frankly healthy ministry currently with our children. So these programs are already currently in place, and they're outlined pretty well here. And I think that as you read through it, you can get a pretty good idea about what we're looking for in our next minister. But we are looking for someone to cultivate and bring in new ideas for what we currently have on this paper. But everything from Sunday school, which would be like recruiting and training all of our Sunday school volunteers, and to getting supplies and coordinating outreach for and follow up for visitors and things like that. And then in children's worship, same. We have to have children's worship volunteers. We have to have security in place, greeters and for each week, and sometimes there may be needed substitutes. Wednesday evening classes. Implement Wednesday evening programming for children. There already is Wednesday evening programming. You mentioned music and missions, and we have that in place here at St. Matthew's already as well. Okay. And then on to discipleship and moving children on throughout and walking with them in their faith as well as walking with their families. I think that your experience lends well towards that. And then on to Vacation Bible School. That's one of our largest ministries that we have here at Matthews, with 400 plus children and volunteers, and something that we take. It's one of our biggest reaches into the community here at St. Matthews, and something we're very proud of. And then on special events, are you familiar with Upward Basketball?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and so we have a great Upward Basketball program. It's currently going on right now, and that is not something that you, as the children's minister, would be directly in charge of. You will oversee a committee that will be in charge of the Upward Basketball program, and so you would be responsible for being a main cheerleader for the Upward Basketball program, and be ever present and available to those families that are bringing their children in and around our church as our minister to children. But you would not be directly responsible in the day-to-day of the Upward Basketball planning. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. And so there are other activities, retreats, camps, passport kids, crossings for kids, things like that. Is there a particular camp or summer camp that your kids do now, or that you are familiar with?
Well, I'm familiar with Passport Kids. There's not a location close enough to us for our kids to go to Passport Kids. So we've been working with some other area churches to kind of form our own summer camp for our kids.
And then there's different weekday ministries. We have a rather large Parents' Day Out and weekday preschool ministry here at St. Matthews. Again, there is a weekday preschool. What would you call Missy?
She is the director.
I was going to say principal. She's a director.
Weekday preschool here.
Yeah, so we have a director already in place. And again, that would be you overseeing that ministry here in the church.
But you would oversee the school program. That's her job.
Okay.
So you would just sort of be your direct boss with the church, I guess. But she runs the school.
Okay.
Okay, so that kind of takes us up to other ministry tasks. The working with the staff, the current staff that's in place, pastoral care, outreach, help during worship leadership, and things like that. As we walk through that, what are your thoughts?
It sounds like a good opportunity to explore and to be a part of a vibrant children's ministry that's already going on. It sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for saying that. So, we got your questionnaire, and I really enjoyed reading your testimony and your calling to ministry. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Well, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church where we didn't have a lot of women in ministry examples. At the age of 16, I felt like I was called to ministry, but I interpreted that as a call to missions. And so I kind of focused myself on being a missionary. And I remember writing to the Home Mission Board and the Foreign Mission Board to get more information on how to be a missionary. And so that first position out of college was a home missions appointment with the Home Mission Board to serve as a missionary. Then later on, when I was in Chattanooga working, I started going to First Baptist Chattanooga. And one Sunday, the pastor preached a sermon, and he asked, "What would you do for God if you weren't afraid?" And I immediately knew the answer, that I would quit my job and go back to divinity school. So it took about 2 years for me to do that. And so I went to divinity school, where I started working with children and kind of fell into that calling and have loved it and been working with that ever since.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. Got a question passed to me. It says, what was the most exciting thing that you learned in divinity school?
You cut out on me. I didn't hear that.
It says, I had a question. What is the most exciting thing that you learned while you were in divinity school?
The most exciting thing I learned while I was in divinity school.
Yeah.
That's hard to narrow down. I think probably learning more about Jesus and how he worked with the poor and with the disenfranchised and with people that other people didn't think were important, with children and women, and how Jesus focused on those people.
Okay. You all have any questions?
Well, I was going to say, you said that after hearing that message that you wanted to go back to school, and during that time is when you felt that you were being called to work with children. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I was a volunteer with the children at that church, working with our Parents Night Out program and with extended session, doing lots of different things with children. And a friend of mine who was the minister to children at that church, he really encouraged me to explore those skills and those opportunities. And so really that's when I first started feeling called to children's ministry. It was during that time.
And that's where your passion lies, working with kids?
Yes, yes.
Right. Well, you guys have any more questions for us?
One question, Maria. This is Joe. I won't stick my big head in front of the camera. One of the challenges we face in our children's ministry, and Vicki and Ben both teach Sunday school, is kind of connecting with young families. A lot of that, the parents may or may not have a strong church connection. So what challenges do you find the families at your church now facing, and how are you all trying to connect with them?
I think one of the biggest challenges that families face now is busyness. They're just so busy with involved in so many good things. It's just hard for them to sometimes make time for church. And so we plan periodic luncheons where we bring families together and talk about how we can live out our calling and live out our faith in our homes. We have one coming up for Lent where we're going to talk about how you can recognize Lent in your home and give you some activities to do with your children and families.
That's great.
Yeah. What other ideas do you have for bringing children and families into the church that maybe we don't have here?
I think in other congregations I've been in, Upward Basketball has been a good way to bring families into the church. That's been a good way to involve families and get them involved in church activities. Yeah. I think we also try to have some community events, like we have a community-wide Easter egg hunt, which is a good way for people in the community to get introduced to our church and our children.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have kids involved, what's your kind of approach to what we would traditionally call evangelizing kids, and kind of moving them to say public professions of faith or baptism, or what are your thoughts around that?
I usually take the lead of the child and the parents. If a children comes to me saying that they're interested in being baptized, I first tell them to talk to their parents, and then I meet with the child and talk to them about what that means to be baptized and what that means to make a profession of faith. And I also sometimes have periodic special studies for all the children to learn about baptism and what that means to make a profession of faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have a specific curriculum for children that you like for, like, say, Sunday school? And
we use the Spark House curriculum, published by Augsburg Portraits, and I like that curriculum a lot. What curriculum do you use?
We currently use Lifeway.
Lifeway.
Okay.
What does the typical weekly Sunday school, Wednesday activities? I know you mentioned the music and missions, but what does that kind of look like now for you?
On Wednesdays, our programming is a little bit different than it was at Knollwood, where we did music and missions. We have a tutoring program, and those kids come for tutoring at 3:15, and then they stay with us for dinner, and then we have a Bible study, and they have some playtime after that with those tutoring kids.
What about children's worship? How are you currently doing children's worship, and what is your outlook for children's worship? Should children be in worship, or should they have separate? What do you think about that?
I think children should be in at least part of worship, because that's how they learn how to worship. But it's also good to have children's church where they can focus more on a Bible study on their level. And that's what we do in children's church. We have a Bible story and focus on worship at their level.
Okay. So some time spent in regular worship, and then time to leave for their own children's worship.
Yes.
Okay.
Maria, it sounds like when coming here, we could run into some situations where you have a group of kids a good bit larger than what you're currently dealing with. So how do you feel in terms of preparation for a larger church and larger groups of kids? And what's your you were remarkably calm when Ben mentioned 400 kids in Bible school. Had to see that you didn't run away. So how do you feel to a larger church or a larger crowd of folks to work with?
Well, I think it would take some time to get to know the kids. And I think you'd also be very dependent on having relationships with the volunteers, because they're the ones working so closely with the kids. And so I think it would be about building relationships with the children and those volunteers, and that would just take some time.
How do you feel about, your ideas on recruiting volunteers and keeping volunteers?
I think keeping volunteers, it's important for them to know they're appreciated, and also like to give volunteers breaks and not have them sign up to work indefinitely, but to let them know the terms of what they're serving for. Is it for 6 months, for a year? Let them know their commitment they're making. And I think it's important to build relationships with those volunteers. And also you have to build relationships with people outside that volunteer pool to recruit new volunteers.
All right, Maria, what questions do you have for us as a committee and as a church?
Well, about how many kids do you have on a Sunday morning?
In children's ministry and in preschool, anywhere from 50 to 70 kids.
Okay.
And sometimes that's more, sometimes it's less.
Wow.
On a roll, I would say there's probably around 100.
Okay.
I would say actually probably 50 to 70 show up on a Sunday morning.
Okay. That's really the only question I had.
What's that?
That's the only question I had, was just about how many kids you had coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you don't have any more questions for us, we will get back with you. I'll give you a call in the next couple of days and let you know what the next step is and where we stand, and we can talk then. If you have any questions between now and then, you have my phone number. Please reach out to me and let me know.
All right. Thank you. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Good to talk to you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Now we have to figure out how to end this thing.
Yeah. So, pause.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Pause.